My friends, welcome back. This is Silver Slayer. We are here with the legendary Andy Scheckman, the CEO of Miles Franklin. Folks, right now it's the holidays, and I'm not trying to shove anything down your throats, but I'm just saying that we do have some incredible deals right now. Eagles for $4.99 over spot. Same deal as last week. You guys liked it so much, we figured, let's keep going with it. Junk silver, $3 over spot, and those 10th ounce gold maples, 5 coin minimum. That's the only minimum though. We also have, I was looking, we have 7 different types of 10-ounce bars. All of them are 245 over spot, except the Volcambies, obviously. But like, we have such a big inventory, that now that I'm starting to like talk to people and get a feel, we have so much stuff. And I think that's really cool that we're able to offer such a diverse selection for all very good prices. So Slayer at milesfranklin.com. I'll get you guys hooked up. But yeah, you're in good hands right now. I know you guys are excited. Every episode you guys say is like incredible. Andy has a lot to mention and his insight you guys value. So what's going on? What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I don't know, man. It's nice to put a bow on the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's crazy how fast it flies. My dad has this he has this analogy. He told me, he said, son, he said, life is like a roll of toilet paper. He's like, when you're young, you don't notice it spinning. And as you get older, you start to notice it spinning faster and faster and faster. And you see the cardboard coming quicker than you normally would. And I guess you could say to me the last few years, since really 2020, it's been spinning so much faster. When I was younger, it seemed like events that were noteworthy happened ever so often, not too frequently. It was kind of an outlier, oh, wow, did you
Yeah.
see? And now
Yeah.
it's like everywhere you turn, every single day, there's something else. It's almost as if we're becoming desensitized to it. And yeah, this year was no different. And I think that 2024 may be crazier than them all combined. When you put into context not only all of the issues that we've talked about day to day, the ascension of the BRICS, the problems with the banks, the problems politically, the problems geopolitically, the problems at home with divisiveness, all of these things that we talk about, the lawlessness in the cities, all of this stuff that's just bombarding you. But I think that this election and the chaos surrounding it, the push to put former President Trump into prison, and the circus that is trying to roll out a man who is senile as to be reelected, all of these things, and what will go along with it, and the mudslinging, and all of the commercials, and the nonstop rhetoric about Trump. And I mean, I think it's going to be an exhausting, crazy year.
Yeah.
Interesting to say the least. And the Chinese have a curse: may you live in interesting times. I think
Yeah.
these will be anything but not interesting. I think they're going to be
Yeah.
a lot to talk about. So, it's something to look forward to, and I'm looking forward to running shotgun with you on this, and talking about it as time unfolds.
Yeah. I made a video about this yet last night actually. And I also said the 2024 election, I think, is something that a lot of people are overlooking. But I've since I talked to a lot of people on the phone now, and by the way, I've had some incredible conversations and made a lot of, in my opinion, like lifelong friends already. But there's a common denominator that everyone agrees on. Everyone says, like you're saying, something just doesn't feel right. Like 2024 just feels different. Like you
Well,
say, it's happening. Just something's off. Like
it's
I don't know.
true, and if you can't, and I think a lot of people can't articulate it, but they feel it, and
Yeah, it's feeling. That's what
feeling
they
is
said.
everything. I think
Yeah.
that we were all blessed with good intuition. Problem is, most of us don't trust our gut. We don't listen
Yeah.
to our intuition, and we say, damn it, I knew that. We can feel it. And I
Yeah.
would say that basically the world is changing so much, and so much more quickly than most Americans understand. And
It's hard to process.
and it's also because there's virtually no coverage um,
Mm.
of the rest of the world in the American media. And so I think that we see what's happening here, and we feel that, and
That's
it's
a good
bombarding
point.
us. But there's also a lot going on outside the world that the people outside the United States that the people have no sense of. So not only do they sense something's not right, the level or the severity of that change or what's happening outside our own borders, I
Yeah,
think
that's
is
a
enough
good
to
point.
really accelerate these feelings. And I'll say something that goes back hundreds of years. There was a man named Voltaire, and he said paper money eventually returns to its intrinsic value zero, and that was he wrote that in
I
the
love that.
1700s, sometime long time ago. But that's something that I think people are going to begin to understand as we see
Hmm.
the government here completely and totally pivot and now signal three um, rate decreases. The rest of the world, I think, will look at that. The Western media says, "Oh, we've beaten inflation." I don't think we've beaten inflation at all. I think we've surrendered to
Yeah.
inflation. I think they've realized that if they continue to hike rates, they will blow up the system. But get this, man. This comes from the Congressional Budget Office, and it says that the interest on the debt, and that's a U.S. government branch, the interest on the debt plus mandatory entitlement spending, which would be things like Social Security, which by the way is off balance sheet and it's already over 70 trillion in the hole, and by 2035 they project it to be insolvent. But within 7 years, by 2031, the interest on the debt plus mandatory entitlement spending will consume 100% of federal tax revenue. That's the government's own admission. They're saying right now that in 7 years, all of the tax revenue they take will only cover the interest on the debt and the mandatory entitlement spending. So that means in 7 years, the entire budget of the US, the discretionary budget, which includes military, will have to be borrowed. So ask yourself this question, man. How the hell can we remain the dominant economic and
Yeah.
military superpower in the world when we have to borrow money just to pay the interest on our debt and to fund our military?
Yeah.
Why would our foes like China want to, and
To
Russia and
fund
Saudi
our
Arabia, why would they want to borrow us money for us to fund our
attack
military?
them. Right. And attack
Right.
them.
And not protect them, actually push back against them.
Yeah. So
And yeah, so and
that's
then
crazy.
you look at a comment that Putin made at a conference that he was just at, and he said that the next meeting for the BRICS, which will be in Russia this coming summer, will be dedicated to a fair world order. He said, as a world order based on rules, there are no such rules. In fact, they change every day depending on the current political situation and short term interests of those who talk about it. So he's basically saying that the West makes up their rules,
Yeah.
and those rules are what we all have to live by. But this is the rallying cry that is bringing everyone together. And since 2014, Putin and Xi Jinping have met over 40 times, and this group, this union that really is centered around Putin and Xi Jinping, and then the rest of the BRICS countries is gaining legitimacy day by day by day. What you got here?
This is Alex Mooney pressing Federal Chairman Jerome Powell about our gold, about the repatriating our gold. He said, you have this was published on December 15th. He says, you have to respond to these questions in writing no later than January 15th. He gave him exactly 1 month. He says, one, has the Federal Reserve or the Federal Reserve Bank of New York repatriated any gold to foreign nations this year? If so, to which countries and how much? Two, how much gold is in the Federal Reserve vaulting for foreign nations and now, and how does this compare to the amount vaulted at the end of 2022? And three, does the New York Fed statement of November 9th asserting that the Federal Reserve and U.S. Treasury Department did not intervene in the foreign exchange markets during the July to September 2023 quarter cover the gold market as well? And then he it goes on to echo his concerns about how citizens deserve to know what's happening with our, with the gold and all this stuff. But
Yeah,
um,
so this is one of the things that really got me on this path. because in 2017, well, it started more like in 2014 or 15, the Bundesbank, the German Bundesbank said to the Fed, give us back our gold. And it took a long time for the Fed to do it. And so by 2017, they were getting really angry and they were publicly saying, give us back our damn gold.
Yeah.
And um, so there's questions as to why it took so long.
Three
There's
years for the
anecdotal evidence that the bars that they sent to them uh, did not match the bars that they were
yeah.
holding. But you know, it was shortly after that that the Bank of Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, Czech National Bank, Dutch National Bank, they all did the same thing. They repatriated their gold from the New York Fed and from the Bank of England, and these banks have been doing exactly that because 2 years later in 2019, gold was revalued as a tier one asset, and which is a riskless asset. So there's no question, but that I think these banks would the central banks would hold their gold at the New York Fed and the Bank of England because it allows them access to the price setting mechanism of the COMEX and the LBMA. And I think as we move closer to some event that will center around gold, we will see, I believe, price setting emerge in other parts of the globe. India just opened up an exchange. You have the Shanghai Gold Exchange, you have the Moscow Exchange, you have the exchange in Dubai. You're going to see price setting move away from the West and move to the East, where these countries are the epicenter of gold and silver. And
Yeah.
I think the reason that you don't see as much bitching by these countries for the suppression of the West is that they're on a buying spree. And if you're going to
Of
slowly and
course.
methodically drain the coffers around the globe, you want there to be Western suppression. You're beating the West at their own game, and they're doing the dirty work for you by holding down the
Yeah.
paper price because
Yeah.
it
This
is
is
it signals fragility in the bond market and the dollar and the whole system. And so that, the people who are accumulating it are saying, great, well, once we have enough and we can't get any more, well, maybe we'll bitch about it then, or maybe we'll just flip the
yeah.
switch and
There you
use
go.
the Shanghai Gold Exchange or one of these other exchanges to set a real price, which
Yeah.
immediately would arbitrage everything in the make-believe Western system over
Yeah.
that way. So yeah,
Right.
we're getting there little by little.
Yeah. Yeah, when I covered the actual, I should have showed the actual article from that because Alex Mooney, he makes some like this wasn't like just a little like, what's happening. He was like, what's going on? He's like, why did it take you 3 years to repatriate? I forget which
The
country it was.
German gold, the
Yeah,
Bundesbank, that's
three
what it was.
years, 3 years. And he's like, what's going on? Citizens deserve to know, where's our gold?
Well,
What
not
are
only
we?
that,
Yeah,
and Alex
it's
Mooney has been he's been at the forefront of this. He's
yeah,
done other things too, including trying to remove all taxes related to precious metals, and he's certainly in our camp.
yeah.
Um,
I've covered him a lot.
Yeah, no, he's certainly a good one. But look, I think that you can look at something like Ron Paul, who's tried repeatedly to audit the Fort Knox gold holdings, and he's shot down continuously. And why? And it begs the question: if this is the American, this is the goal of the American people, then why not be forthright about it? And this is
Yeah,
one of the another rallying cry that we're seeing is how opaque our system is, the lack of transparency. And this is why I believe, in order to make this work, which it will, a system that will use gold pegging will have to marry blockchain technology so that you can have transparency and no more promises and opaque. It's kind of like you catch your girlfriend or your wife cheating on you. Okay, fine. I'll forgive you. And then it happens a second and a third time. Well, fine, but well, let me see your phone. No, the phone's locked. Well, the point of it is that that's a very bad analogy. But the point of it
no.
is that our phone is locked. If we can't show the
Yeah,
world what we're holding, if we're not going to audit it, and if people are going to try to get it back, and it takes 3 years, I mean, well, it seems like the phone is locked and you're hiding something. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here.
yeah,
Shame, you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, how about fool me 37 times? And that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're getting at. And you know, I give a lot of credit to a guy like Alex Mooney who is a lone voice
Yeah.
up there with the, you know, Rand and Ron Paul, who have tried to inject a little bit of transparency and authenticity into this system. And you can see the pushback. And
Do
this is why power is slowly slipping from the West, because we are losing the one thing that, if you lose, might be harder to get back than anything, and that is trust. And I think we are losing the
yeah.
trust and the confidence of the world,
Yeah.
and certainly the good graces of our foreign creditors, who have allowed us to live beyond our means for a very long time. And instead of clinging to what it would be to be an American and to enjoy the world reserve status and to be the center of free trade and to be the beacon of light and democracy around the globe, we are doing everything we can to piss on that. And it's very disheartening, I think, when you look at it from the lens of a patriot. And I am a patriot. I'm someone this country has given more to than I could ever hope for. And the opportunities this country has given me, you know, I mean, my father and I are the least likely cast of characters to have ever achieved what we did. My dad was a hippie. You know, I was a halfway decent student, but never would have dreamed in my life that we would end up here. And it's because of the opportunities this country has given me. I am not someone who doesn't notice that, but that's what makes this whole thing much more disheartening, is the decisions we are
Yeah.
making. You know, a guy
Yeah.
like Alex Mooney is a beacon of light in what is a really cesspool of darkness in Washington. So God bless Alex Mooney, and everyone should support him. I
Yeah.
think he's awesome.
Yeah. The scary, because when I was covering this article the other day, I was talking about how this it's kind of scary because even if federal chairman Jerome Powell does respond honestly and it exposes a lot of dirty secrets, that's going to be dangerous within itself, so whether it's the truth or the hiding secrets, I feel like both ways are going to be bad.
Well, and you know, at the same time that the Fed is being reluctant to repatriate other countries' gold, you have central bank gold buying at the highest it's ever been, ever
Yeah.
in history. And you have China, which is, you know, bought record amounts of gold over the first 9 months of the year. And it's crazy. So, you know, it's 12 tons they've bought in the first 9 months of the year. And that's just what they report. A lot of the gold they buy,
Yeah.
they don't report. And all the gold they're mining, they don't report. And that's why guys like Alistair McLeod will tell you that they have close to 40,000 metric tons, 5 times what we supposedly have. And, you know, of which half of it's owned by the people and half of it's owned by the government. And you go to China and you go into a mall and 80% of the stores are gold shops. And you
Yeah.
go in, you look
It's
at the back
crazy.
of a bus and there's advertisements for buying gold. You go into a bank, you buy Chinese pandas right there. They are a country who understands what gold represents. And there's an old saying, I don't know how
Ooh.
old it is, but it's a lot older than me. And that is, he who has the gold makes the rules. And I think that's kind of what the East is understanding and what the West has forgotten, unfortunately. A guy like Alex Mooney hasn't, and
Yeah.
God bless the guy for saying that.
Yeah. I like that. He who has the gold makes the rules. That is cool. It's so true. Like it really is determined. I mean, I forget what I was watching the other day, but they were talking about how gold is basically how we determine a country's wealth. Like it's not how much money you print off. We determine it off gold. And if you apply that to a person basis, whoever has more gold is the one wealthier than the person that has millions in their bank account.
Well, I mean, look at
Uh,
the United States. Everyone assumes that we're so wealthy, but look at
right.
our balance sheet. We
Yeah.
have 5 trillion in assets, of which 40% is student debt. Yes, that's right. You heard me. The US government considers student debt to be an asset. And so you take that out, that's 1.6 trillion. You take that out, we have just over 3.5 trillion in assets backing 150 or more trillion in debt. 34 trillion on balance sheet, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and government military pensions. We are above 150 trillion in debt. We are insolvent. We're broke. And so,
Yeah.
how wealthy are we? We are a
Yeah.
country that has had the ability to print money at will. So yes, we have the appearance of being very
Yeah.
wealthy, but in essence, it's all an illusion. It's all a
Yeah.
mirage. And this is why you're seeing the central banks buy more gold than ever. It's not just gold, too. I mean, look at silver. You
Yeah.
have, as an example, India, right? India bought 304 million ounces of silver last year, and we talked a lot about that. They also bought 60 million ounces in October and 20 million ounces in November. So they've bought another 80 million ounces that we know of
Yeah.
already this year. They've bought 400 million ounces of silver in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And so think about that for a second. That's way more than is on the whole COMEX ecosystem. These
Yeah.
countries are using the bullshit suppression of the Western market against us. These countries understand that in the end, he who has the gold and silver and the world's commodities make the rules. And the same thing is true about lithium and cobalt and nickel and copper. All of these items are either being accumulated by or are largely found in the ground of these nations that are joining the BRICS. So we haven't thought this whole plan through very well, where we are reliant for importing the majority of these hard assets that one would need to develop a war chest. And that's why you're seeing these things being done methodically and slowly, and not rushing to buy up as much as you can to alert everyone that this is
Right.
what's going on. It's a much more strategic game of, misdirection, I guess you could say.
Yeah. It is crazy when you put all the when you put all the puzzle pieces together and to see how strategic this whole entire plan is. It's 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 like it's very scary as an American. I wanted to show. So I was watching the LBMA conference, and they were talking about, and a Kitco News article actually, and they're mentioning how we're forecasting, or they're predicting another record-breaking deficit up to 1.4 billion ounces, preceding the 1.21 billion ounces. So, another hundreds of millions of at least, 100 plus million ounces in the red. But this article came out yesterday, and it's saying how demand and investment is going to fall. So I literally heard from the man himself and Silver Institute in a live video, a live, conference talking about record breaking 1.4 billion. And now we're looking at 1.14 billion ounces in 2023. Industry showed that globally total silver demand is forecast to ease by 10% to 1.14 billion ounces. So I'm confused on what do you think about this?
I think it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, that's what,
I
yeah,
do, and they don't even take into account um the military demand, and
yeah,
it's I think it's a bunch of crap. They continue to,
yeah.
like the Silver Institute has revised their numbers
Yeah, a
from last
hundred.
year
Where did all those,
dramatically. So they come out, they
dude?
print this bullshit, and then a year later, just like the Bureau of Labor
I,
Statistics, they revise it.
dude, I'm glad I exposed this shit. Sorry, I exposed them so hard for that. Where they just said, what was the word they said? They're over 100 million ounces. Just what was the word they said? Like unexpectedly, just showed up out of nowhere once they looked into revise the actual data. But yeah,
Right.
this is interesting.
Right. Well,
It,
and I think it's very disingenuous
yeah,
that they would do this and say this and then come back and revise it later. Well, it's the same thing here. This
yeah.
is something that I wouldn't pay any attention
Yeah,
to. And
1.13 billion. That is nuts. That's nuts. There's no
well, even
way.
if it is 1.13 billion, we're only mining about 800 million
Yeah.
ounces or so. So you're still going to have and that's with it's not we're probably even mining less than that. It's with recycling also, but there's a shortage, and
Yeah.
it's something that you know will continue. The green and the digital and the military and all of these components on top of the monetary demand have been growing, for the last 4 years while the supply continues to dwindle. So, look, this is just more of the same old nonsense, and I think
Yeah.
that a lot of these mouthpieces, they don't do the public any justice. This is exactly
Yeah.
how the big money. I mean, if you would argue that the military industrial complex is behind some of the suppression here because they're fighting wars constantly all around the globe or being involved in wars, funding and providing the munitions. Well, you need silver in all of this stuff. So you don't want people running to buy silver if it's going to prohibit the ability to make weaponry that needs silver. So
Yeah.
and that component, you can Google how much silver is in a tomahawk, and bam, you'll find 500 ounces. Well,
500.
why is that not included in the measurements
Yeah.
on the Silver Institute measurements of silver? Isn't that a little odd?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that are omitted, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that people would keep in mind when they look
Yeah.
at the legitimacy of these statements.
And I think this even falls more in favor of the theory of that. Remember a couple weeks ago how I made that video how US military raids our stockpiles, our silver stockpiles. I feel
That's
like
what I'm
that
talking
it's
about.
starting to make more and more sense because I know we got a little bit of backlash on, not backlash, but a lot of some people were just saying some things not sure, but it does make sense.
And that
So
backlash that you got, I think, was ridiculous. I think
yeah,
all we were
dude,
doing was commenting on a report
yeah,
that I found to be intriguing as
yeah,
hell, and
yeah,
and he cited facts. So people,
yeah,
the backlash from that one person,
yeah,
I found to be laughable.
yeah. I've been doing YouTube so long now. I've bumped heads with so many. I don't even care anymore.
To me, it makes a
Like,
whole lot of sense.
yeah,
And that pickaxe article, say what you want about it, I found it to be compelling,
yeah,
very interesting, and very well written. And
yeah,
so it's an area that people aren't talking about when we talk about uses for silver. But
yeah.
when you look at how much silver is used in high-tech weaponry, and you see how many missiles are being fired across the globe every single day, well, where is that coming from? And why is it not being calculated? And once those missiles are fired, it's not like you're going to go and
It's not.
recover the
Yeah,
silver.
it's
It's
gone.
gone forever. And so, this is something that I think is part of the misdirection
Yeah,
of the Silver Institute and all these talking heads. So this is one of these deals why I've always said trust your gut.
yeah,
And because one of the problems is that we believe in America that everyone is being honest with us in terms of the mainstream media. But it's becoming very obvious that they're not, including the Federal Reserve, the people that we rely on for information. Just 3 weeks ago, they're saying, we're not going to raise interest rates. And in fact, we haven't caught up. We're not going to lower interest rates. We're continue to raise them and to sell off our balance sheet because inflation is still a threat. And then you get Powell come and say, well, we're going to ease. In fact, we're going to project 3 rate decreases next year. And then you got John Williams, another member of the Fed, come out and say the contrary to that, publicly say, well, we're not even thinking about that, and it's irresponsible to do so. In fact, we're trying to make sure that we keep inflation in check. Well, what is that? I mean, that's dissension amongst the Federal Reserve. That's indecisiveness. What is it
yeah,
really saying? And I think that's a big deal. That you know we're getting misinformation everywhere. And I think you have to trust your gut. You can look at all of the surroundings and all of the information, but uh, half of it you can take with a grain of salt. So trust your gut right now. We're in uncharted waters, and ask yourself, where the hell is all the silver coming from if it is indeed needed in high-tech weaponry, and why is it not counted in the Silver Institute's um, supply side or supply demand table? Why? And that's got to be a massive component. So It makes sense when you look at the military industrial complex supposedly would control so much of the world. Um, and to not let us figure that out. I think
Yeah.
it's a rabbit hole that I think I could go down pretty easily. Give me a bottle of tequila and sit next to you on a beach chair, and we could go down that rabbit hole all night long. And, kind of tongue in cheek, but I'm serious. I think there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah. I that's crazy. I used that exact word, the silver rabbit hole. Just yesterday. Another perfect example. Keith Newmeyer, watching his interview on Kitco, he said Canada put out their critical mineral list. They talked about 200 different metals. He said I've never even heard half of them, but silver's not on there as a critical mineral that is needed for the world to go round. Silver's not on there, but all these other random ones are. And he said, why? Silver, out of all these, is the most important. Why did they purposely? This wasn't a mistake. Why did they leave silver off?
Well, that's the
Like,
point. And that's
you
the
know,
point here. And that's why, the service that you're providing to the public shouldn't be understated. And, I told you a year ago that you belong. I said, I think those were my exact words to you. You're a young guy, but that you belong. I find you to be wise beyond your years. And the stories that you choose and the way that you frame them are, I believe, to be very, very important. And this is why the demographics of the people who listen to you are much older than people would think, because you don't have to be gray hair like me to understand what's important and to see the truth. Problem is that we're not getting any of this by the mainstream, and so there's an awful lot of reluctance to understand and believe this. But the more you
yeah,
go down this silver rabbit hole, the more you begin to see, well, yeah, well, geez, that's true, and that makes sense. And um, I just think that even in when you talk about the number of ounces that they say will be used in photovoltaic or the solar panels is way, way low, and they had to come back and way
yeah,
adjust them. Well, you don't hear
yeah,
much about them talking about that. You don't see that in the news. The Silver Institute today came back and completely readjusted their projections
yeah,
for silver voltaic for solar panels tremendously by a factor of 2 or 3 or 4
yeah.
because
It
they
was
understated it. But the
hundreds of
people
millions.
are, and that's why I always say you cannot get out of the way of what you don't see coming, or in this case, you cannot take advantage of something that you don't see coming. And yeah, it's been a long haul, and you have to have strong fingertips to hang on through the volatility. But I do think that it's important and fair to talk about the volatility. And I think the volatility is something that um, is typically a sign that the market is in the process of, I think, in my opinion, of breaking the suppression. This tremendous volatility we're seeing in silver, and once it breaks, silver will explode because it's being held down for these types of reasons. And for people to think that it's not being held down, all you really need to do is look at a chart of the AM fix, the PM fix, and then right as it heads into New York over an extended period of time, and you see things that are very, very uncharacteristic of free markets. And there has been for a very long time a very strong stranglehold on the price of silver. To me, you have to ask yourself, of all of the commodities traded on the COMEX, why is there the largest concentrated short position, meaning by a handful of players, commercial banks, in silver, more than any other commodity on the exchange? Why?
Right.
And that's a question. Then you work backwards from there. And so I think it's easy to come up with these statements when you look at the reality, but people don't ever look at that reality and just ask that question. Why is the Silver Institute omitting these things? And why is there the largest concentrated short position of any commodity traded in the whole futures exchange in lowly old silver if it's not that important? And these are
Yeah.
questions that allow your mind to expand and then try and seek the truth in a way that is not conspiratorial. There's a very fine line between conspiracy and reality. And I've learned that in this industry. And I was the guy up on stage at the Agora conference screaming that the markets are being manipulated by J.P. Morgan. And Doug Casey said, no, that's impossible. Right after me, that's impossible. He got up
Yeah.
and said, J.P. Morgan traders can't keep their mouth shut long enough. Oh, lo and behold, J.P. Morgan has 3 traders in prison and paid a
Yep.
$920 million fine, the
Yep.
largest ever that the Justice Department passed out at that point. So the point is that is it conspiracy? Is it reality? Where is it? I mean, where's the tinfoil hat? And I think that's one of the things that has enabled people to look past this because it's just conspiracy, it's bullshit. But it's not. And these are the things that why there'll be very little advanced warning to everyone out there. We've been screaming this forever, but the people on the street who've never listened, they won't notice it until it's blown off. And
Yeah.
and I think that's coming. That's in the cards.
Yeah. And that's actually that's a perfect segue into this article. This is some good stuff. I made a video about this yesterday, but just I want to share this last section. Silver, the investment of the decade. As we navigate this juncture in the precious metals market, it's evident that silver holds the potential to be one of the most profitable investments of this decade. The historical echoes of the gold to silver ratio and the current anomaly in silver's lag suggest that a resolution is near. Investors, prepare yourselves for a silver resurgence, a journey that may be tumultuous but promises rewards for those who ride the waves wisely.
Right on. I
And
agree. And that's that volatility.
yep.
And typically you see greater volatility before a blow off in any market in either direction. And I mean, take a look at the far bottom left there. Before you took off, great volatility, up, down hard, and then way up. And then, I mean, that's what you see. You see much greater volatility before a market really takes off. That's typical.
Yeah. It a lot of, what is this saying? Like 90% of the movement happens the last
Last
10,
10%.
the
Yeah,
last 10%. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. And that's when human emotions take over and
Yep.
when you have to be much more logical.
Yeah. I
But
always say,
yeah, these are all things that are very important that you won't find in the mainstream.
yeah.
And that's why I made in a comment like you belong. There are very few silver commentators out here who do the research that you do and look at it and frame it in a way that makes you think. So I think that's fantastic, and people owe you a debt of gratitude as far as I'm concerned. What you do is not easy. Putting yourself out there is not easy, and but it's admirable. And I think the stories that you find are spot on. And when you comment on them, that's exactly what you're doing. You're not giving financial advice. You're commenting on a story and on its authenticity. But I think
Yeah.
things are just getting going for silver. And I know it's hard for people maybe to hear that because it's been such a drawn out process. But this is something you have to think in terms of big picture. The
Yeah.
way that these nations are accumulating silver against the West, using the suppression against them, has to be methodical. It has to be done plotting and drawn out and slowly rather than all at once. So this is one of these deals that will be like this, and then bang, there'll be no more silver left to be delivered at these prices. And maybe that is a problem with the COMEX, or maybe that's just a realization that the coffers are empty. And then things change immediately. And then it goes the other direction, and it will run to the upside as much as has been held down to the downside, because once it's set free from the shackles of the Western suppression and it's valued for its real utility, I think the upside potential is life changing. Now, I don't sell gold and silver for these reasons. I don't sell them for profit potential, but I do think that silver is the trade of a generation. I do. It's definitely the trade of the decade. And, I mean, I buy it because it's money. and its wealth outside the system. But the fundamentals, both supply and demand, um, are incredible. And I think it's something that will only start to show its true value here, maybe in 2024 as things start to become a little bit more real, if you will.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's exactly, man. Like, I swear there's only a couple of people that I've covered that like truly have put the missing puzzle piece together. Like everyone always has, like they'll be spot on certain parts, but people like Keith Neumeyer, yourself, Ted Butler, David Morgan, um, who else? Mike Maloney, I could even say to some extent, Bix Ware. Um, there's a couple other people too. I'm not remembering right. I don't know, but those are people I feel like that truly get it. A lot of people just look at one section or another, and that can be pretty dangerous because when you're looking at such a like the micro, for example, and you miss the bigger picture, that's when you're not incorporating so many different unknown variables. And you'll see forecasts where I saw a forecast yesterday, actually. They said we would be shocked if silver doesn't hit all-time highs within 3 years, tops. And a lot of people were saying like that's impossible. It's like how is that impossible? Three
Well,
years tops
I
to
think
hit all-time
people
highs.
will say that because of the information that the mainstream is providing and the
Yeah,
price action that we've seen would make people believe that. Remember what I've said a long time ago to you, price is the ultimate tool of misdirection. And if
yeah,
you hold down the price, it creates a reality regardless of the fundamentals. And that's why when you talk about the fundamentals being distorted, oh, you're just saying that you're a conspiracy, that's not true, blah blah blah. But it's very easy to see if you go down the silver rabbit hole. Do
yeah,
your research and then make your comments. And
yeah,
you are in a position of authority to say that, and so am I. I've done my research. The people who push back and say that kind of stuff, they haven't, well, they maybe have looked down the rabbit hole, but they haven't certainly jumped in and plugged their nose and here we go. And I think that's the important thing. So the more you start to read this and look or read about it and research it, and the more sense it makes.
yeah. I like that. The silver rabbit hole. I like that. I like that. But anyways, yeah, in closing, is there anything else you wanted to talk about or mention?
No, that's, well, I think the only other thing is, we talked a little bit, I think, last week about United Arab Emirates telling the world they didn't want to use oil. And I don't know if we, or use the dollar for oil, which is a huge shot across the Western bow. But I don't know that if we talked about the fact that a couple days later, Putin made a surprise impromptu
Yeah,
trip to the United Arab Emirates, flanked by 4 Russian MiG fighter jets. The day, right after this United Nations meeting ended with 200 countries coming to talk about climate control, the meeting presided over by the head of the United Arab Emirates state-owned oil company, who told the world the day before, 2 days before all these countries arrive, hey, we're not going to take dollars anymore for oil. Well, then the summit ends. Putin makes an impromptu trip to the UAE, and then goes directly to Saudi Arabia, whereby they then say, oh, we're going to actually increase our reduction in daily output from 1.1 to 2.2 million barrels of oil per day. So is it coincidence, or is this group gaining credibility, gaining legitimacy? I think that, to me, that's something to keep your eye on. This is really beginning to spin faster. And in years past, when a country would say something like that, think Muammar Gaddafi, think of Saddam Hussein. One said, I'm going to take euro for oil. The other said, I'm going to take gold for oil. And they were both toppled and killed, and their regimes changed. Well, it ain't so easy to do that when the United Arab Emirates just joined the BRICS alongside of Saudi Arabia. And in 11 days, they become full members. You have strength in numbers. You have strength in backing 2 of the 3 largest nuclear arsenals in the world. And is there any coincidence that after they make this very daring statement, glaring and daring, that Putin decides to fly over with 4 MiGs,
Yeah.
flanking him because he hasn't left the country but once or twice in the last few years because of the bounty on his head. But it was enough to have him fly in person to the UAE. I think it's very, very important in what it says. And
Yeah.
that's why I believe 2024 is going to be one crazy, crazy year.
Yeah. That's, man. I just keep thinking of that Chinese proverb we always mention. It's like, may we live in interesting times.
Well, it's true. And these are
Yeah.
very interesting. And I'm a lot older than you, but I started this company before the internet. And I started this company before
That's
people were
crazy.
texting and emailing. And 1989, 1990, there was no internet. There was no emailing. There was no texting. I remember thinking to myself, why the hell would anyone want to email when you can just call? Or why would anyone want to text when you can just call? And um, times change. And
Yeah.
I think that's very much emblematic of where we are now. Times are changing.
Yeah.
And these are going to be big changes, just like the internet
Yeah.
was a big change. These are going to be really big changes. And it'll be fun to maybe fun's not the right word. It will be interesting
Yeah.
to watch them with you and talk about them as they unfold. But I just want to wish you and everyone out there very, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, a happy and healthy New Year, everyone.
Yeah.
And God bless the United States. God bless us all. This is time for us to buckle up. I think it's going to get interesting. And, you know, I think it'll be certainly be fun or interesting to watch things unfold. So
Yeah.
it's been a good
Yeah.
year, my friend, and I look forward to what the next year brings.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. Adjusting and adapting to the situations, which is preparing, it's a silver stacking strategy or strategizing, given the information, or it's not gambling or just throwing money and just praying that it sticks, that's gambling. But anyways, yeah, guys, if you wanted to purchase silver, remember Slayer at milesfranklin.com. We got deals right now. Eagles $4.99 over spot, no minimum. Also constitutional silver, $3 over spot. We also have like specifics like Mercury Dimes is $3.50 over spot. And a couple other ones. Dimes and quarters are $3 over spot specifically. But yeah, we also have lots of other stuff, like I said. Yeah, Andy, I want to thank you giving us your time and sharing your knowledge. And yeah, see
Pleasure is
you.
mine, my friend.
Yeah, we
Pleasure
could
is mine.
do this again next week as well. Maybe, it's holidays and stuff, but we'll figure it out. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe and like the video. Definitely click the bell so you get updated as soon as I post. Peace.